Hey there, adventurers. Welcome back to Whispers from the Phylactery, where I like to talk tabletop design, philosophy, and storytelling. Whether you need inspiration for your next session or just want someone in the background riffing on role playing games with you. I've been a GM for 15 plus years, and I like to make videos that sort of go into things I like to talk about. Today, I wanted to do a sort of a joint video with the other one because simply they'd be too long, and that is a personal step-by-step process for running session 0, what I like to do. The other video goes over why session zeros are good and the issues it can help avoid. This one's more focused on the actual process. And session zeros are one of the most powerful tools a game runner has. It sets expectations, it builds party bonds, and helps stop a campaign from collapsing halfway through. So let's get into it and break down how I run a session 0 in a way that, to me, it feels practical, fast, and hopefully leaves everybody excited to play. So the first part is a really brief overview. If you don't want to watch the other video, what is a session 0? For those new to the term, a session 0 is a game session, or sessions, I suppose, before the game starts. Instead of diving into Dungeons and Dragons immediately, or Pathfinder, or Call of Cthulhu, or Vampire the Masquerade, uh, brain, we sit down and talk about what kind of story that the group wants to collectively make. It's world building, character creation, tone setting, and expectation setting all sort of rolled into one. The point isn't to write a giant rule book for your group, it's to make sure that everyone's on the same page before the dice hit the table, before you gather, bring drinks and snacks. If you want more information on what can happen to groups that don't use a session 0 or the perks of using one, take a look at the video here. So let's get into the actual process now. Step 1, the tone and genre of the game. The very first thing I do is ask, what kind of story are we telling? Are we doing dark fantasy tragedy, lighthearted adventure and comedy, a political a political intrigue campaign full of betrayal? If the group doesn't share expectations about the tone and genre, players could be pulling in opposite directions and not having as much fun. And of course, this is after you've already gotten people, you grabbed a few friends or people down from the game shop, and you say, okay, we want to run a game. Let's see if we can make this work. If the campaign is more impromptu, like if the regular game runner is taking a break and I've been asked to run something, then I'll ask everybody to pitch a vibe in a sentence, or make their pitch. What kind of game would they like to run, or not run, but what kind of game would they like to see? And then we would go from there, and just kind of do a vote on what sounds appealing, what people find interest in. If I have a little bit of advanced time and I know that I want to run a campaign, I've gathered the people I'd like to play with, I like to provide a couple sentence blurb about several campaign ideas, because I've usually got a couple bouncing around, that I'm happy to play with any of them. So I'll write down a few sentences and I'll provide them to the group. Maybe I even have a song that I feel resonates with the campaign settings I have in mind. I find music is a really great connector. So, recent example, before I started my most recent campaign, I had the song Dungeons of Dreadrock stuck in my head. I based a campaign on that, and I provided a couple blurb. You need to go into the tomb, you need to find the secret of Dreadrock, and you need to stop the undead menace. I also provided a pitch for a Seekers of Sin campaign, where the players would need to go around collecting shards of a fallen god's blood that were corrupting mortals, and imprison them or destroy them. We hadn't really worked it out yet, and so I gave both of these to my players. When you do that, the group can discuss what they like, what they don't like, and then you lock it in. That applies for the one sentence pitches as well. It's just less what's the word? Established? Not established. Less prepared. That's a given. That is less prepared. It allows you to communicate your thoughts better if you know in advance. We'll just go with that. So once the group has decided on the tone and the genre of the story that we're going to tell, I like to go to number 2, and that is campaign scope. We look at how long do we want to play the game. So I will just ask straight out, are we planning for a short arc of 4 to 6 sessions? Is this something that we do in a month and a half or 2 months? Or do we want a longer ongoing game that might last months or a year? I've never really done like games that are several years. I've played games that are a year and a half to 2 years at the longest. That's sort of where it caps out. Just because life happens, things keep coming up. But circling back to the main topic, this is important in session 0 because it sets expectations for pacing, for character backstories, and how much commitment people want to put in. If you know that work is going to get really busy in a couple months and you're not going to be able to commit as much, you might only want to do a 6-session quick adventure, short story. Personally, I always start with a short arc, 4 to 6 sessions, not episodes. Well, I guess you could view it as episodes. 4 to 6 sessions, because when that arc ends, it feels complete. The group has accomplished their goal. And if people are enjoying the game and they want to keep playing in this world or in this story, we can just naturally keep it going through a series of short arcs. Like, you have saved your village from the cult that is trying to open up a portal, and you find, and that's the end of it. You have saved your village, or you've done some minor thing. If the players want to keep going, there's the realization that this was the machination of a larger entity, that you must now go and stop. And then if another 6-7 sessions after that, players are having fun, well, the cult was stopped here, but they did succeed partially in bringing forth their demonic patron or their devilish patron, whatever have you, in another location. Clues point that way, and now it's threatening a wider area. You must travel, you're higher level. It goes from there. So, campaign scope. It's helpful people know it right off the bat. Sorry if this video seems a little bit all over the place. I'm trying not to ramble too much while getting on with the notes I wrote down, like I do the quick jot note thing. But the next step for me is, so we've gone over the genre and the tone, the length expectation. Next is lines and veils. And this part makes some game runners nervous, but it is important, super important. I use the terminology lines and veils, or green, yellow, red system, and basically they are safety tools. This is where you talk about boundaries and what do we want to appear on screen or off of screen, or just not show up at all. And it's important to remember that these can be concepts as well as specific things. So what content is off the table? This is a line, like a line in the sand. In my games, hard lines are typically child abuse, sexual abuse, and then whatever else the group might want to add. It's important, and I'm trying to say this the correct way. Nothing is sacred in this space, or in this part. Everything can come off the table. If it makes someone uncomfortable, it's off the table. And again, it can be concepts such as the ones I did before, where it's abuse, or it can be specific things. If someone is arachnophobic and can't handle spiders in any capacity, that's a line. I'm not going to include spiders in the game if it makes people uncomfortable. to the point where they will have a freak out, or they just won't be having fun anymore. That's that's the entire point of it. So when I say nothing is sacred, it's sorry, looping back here. I just want to make sure I'm understood. Um, even if one player would find it really interesting, that one player doesn't their enjoyment doesn't override the uncomfortableness or the issues that another player would have. Yeah, if it makes someone uncomfortable, it's out of the game. It's simple. Chances are you're not losing that much. If we'll just use the spider thing. If someone's afraid of spiders, you can swap it out for another bug. If someone doesn't want abuse in their story, why would you need abuse in the story anyway? You can skip it. Doesn't have to be there or mentioned at all. And then veils. So what content might exist in the world, but it's handled off screen? Those are veils. These could be sexual encounters, romantic relationships. Torture is a big one usually. Anything where it's like, okay, we're going to do this thing. I'm going to roll the dice for it, and then we're going to skip to what happens next. I flirt with the barmaid to get us a discount at the tavern. Great. Roll a persuasion check, and then the scene cuts to in the morning. You all wake up, you wave at the barmaid, and you leave the tavern. You flashed over it. You didn't go into detail. It's a veil. I'm not really sure. That's veils. It doesn't require a huge amount of explanation. So I frame it. It's difficult. I try to frame it as we're all here to have fun. So what things should we avoid so that no one gets blindsided and they're not having fun anymore? It's simple, it's respectful, and it avoids those awkward, uncomfortable derailments mid-session where a player does something because they think it's funny, and it's not funny at all. They're laughing. Everyone else is going, "What is wrong with you?" And it can break a group apart just like that. There's horror stories about it everywhere on the internet. So, sorry, getting back on my. It's really important to make sure that everyone's comfortable with the game. And if people are uncomfortable sharing these things, I also leave it open for players to message me directly. It doesn't need to be brought up who made a request. That's something to be avoided. I just announce to the table before we play, like, these are the hard limits. We're not doing these. These are the things that we're going fade to black. And as a prompt to sort of get ideas running, because we all know the issue of too many options. If you sit someone down and say, what don't you want in the game? They might just blank and be like, oh no, everything's fine. Spoiler, everything is not fine. I have the RPG content checklist. This is the one I like. There are a ton of them online. You just got to do a search for role-playing game consent checklist or role-playing game lines and veils. I use it as a prompt. It is not a holy grail document. It is, here's a bunch of common ones. Can you think of anything else along these lines that would bug you? And when I run a game, I have all these printouts. I hand them to the players, and then they can either message me or they can fill it out and return it back to me. And it's only between me and the player. So if you want to check out this one, I'll include a link in the description to this specific download. It was originally done by Monty Cook Games, and I find it's a pretty good balance of different things that could be issues. And the best part is it's free to use for personal use as long as you don't sell it. So I'll put the link in the description. The next step. That one was kind of a heavy one. But it needs to be said, right? It's important. So the next part is character building. Instead of people playing their characters in a vacuum, I like to suggest everyone does it together at the table. Well, it's not the full character creation, but the beginning thoughts of character creation, the theory building and the crafting. Um, I like to go around the table and I ask questions like, "How do your characters know each other? Why are you adventuring together?" That's a big one. And what ties you to the story we're planning? You don't have to have all these answers right away, but you should have an inkling. And it's good to riff off each other. Like, the exact questions aren't as important as the effect they have on the group. And that's making the group think about their characters and who they are in relation to each other. Are they lifelong friends or begrudging rivals forced to work together by circumstance? Are they all members of a mercenary guild or an adventuring guild and they've been tasked to go on this assignment? Maybe a couple of people know each other, but not everybody. Maybe people are long lost relatives and the players work. It's like, yeah, this would be really cool to roleplay. Having everyone make their characters at the same time creates party cohesion instead of five strangers who coincidentally meet at a tavern. And it gives me, as the game runner, hooks to tie the plot into their backstories and make it more than a go here, kill this guy. All right, GM, we did it. Where do we go next? Okay, well, you go here and then you got to kill this guy. Those are kind of boring adventures. At that point, why aren't you just playing a skirmish war game? Here's your hero, here's the enemies. I have 3 board games on my shelf that do that exact thing. They're in that shelf over there. Why are you playing the story game? So, and again, this isn't saying characters need to be 100% fleshed out mechanically and down nuts and bolts ready to go. This is a starting point. Where it's like, yeah, that's a really cool idea. I like your dwarf ranger. I kind of want to be a elvish druid that was friends with you. Um, so you have an animal companion. I'll take uh, the the companion version in whatever edition. In 5th edition, that would be of the land. Oh no, of the wild. Moon druid. I don't play 5th edition that much. I'll be honest. Um, and you work together like, yeah, so I'll make this character, it'll link with yours, we go from there. We'll show up in the first session, we'll be good with our mechanics. And part of that is it's also going to link with house rules. I kind of bring it up in both styles, in both places, and that's the we'll also go over what source material I'm allowing for the game or what races are allowed in the game, kind of like with the tone of the setting. Um, like if the party agrees to tell a story about, we'll say, high seas adventure, um, some character concepts just don't fit in. Some races don't fit in. Some races, it solves the problem of 5 people showing up, each being the special snowflake, and going, "Why would you guys gather? Why would you do the thing?" Like, uh, everyone has their own interpretations or their own like viewpoints when making the story. Like for the Viking game I ran, everyone was human. However, everyone also had uh, the way I did it was everyone was human, but there were different clans, and the different clans were the different races out of the book. So, Elvish clan, the elves might be Raven clan; they're more mystically inclined. The orcs were Bear clan; they were more martially inclined. The the humans were the humans; they were Stag clan; they were just they were average; they were humans. Um, so everyone had the race benefit, but they looked human because we're telling a Viking game of Norse mythology with human heroes. That's what I mean by that. So now that I've rambled on way too much about that part, the next part after character building is table logistics. This step isn't glamorous, but it saves a lot of pain. So, what days and times actually work for everybody? how long should sessions run, and how do we handle cancellations or missing players? Like, yeah, it sounds boring. It's the logistics side of it, but these practical agreements are what keep a campaign from dying in 3 to 5 sessions when people don't show up, and you're like, well, what do we do? It's helpful to know. It's helpful to know what to do when a player is missing instead of figuring it out at the last minute. I'm sure everybody's done that. It's an hour until game time, and it's like, oh, well, I can't make it anymore. And everyone else goes, do we still play? What are we doing? What's happening here? Um, it helps to know in advance. That's the gist of it. This one's pretty short and sweet. It's logistics. What times work for people? You all settle on a thing, you make it work. Step number 6, house rules and style. So this one kind of bleeded in with the character creation one. I go over any house rules or tweaks to the system that we're using. I've run a few systems. I like pieces of different systems that I bring along with me. And just sort of off the top of the head, are critical hits doubled, or do you roll the dice? How do I handle alignment in my games? I don't do a ton of homebrew, like house rules. I do homebrew, but not house rules are a little bit more different. If there's a vague rule that someone asks about, I want to answer it at this point. Like, oh, I'm thinking about my character being a rogue. How do you interpret this rule? Like, or I want to play an illusionist wizard. How do you work with illusions in your games? Like, this is important. But I also like to talk about the style of the game. Is the game going to be combat heavy? Is it going to be role play and exploration focused? How deadly is the world? Most being realistic and honest, game design now, mainstream, has a tendency to not be very deadly, or not be very gritty. It is high fantasy with high magic, and resurrections are common. That's what it is. There are other games that are more gritty and brutal. We have the Warhammer RPG, Knives in the Dark, Dungeon World, different options for those. So it lets me lay out, again, what I expect for character creation. Which books are we going to use? All of them, some of them. Are some races preferred for the story we're going for, looking to tell? Yeah. This part bleeds into tone and setting, and it gets discussed all over. I just want to make sure that as I'm going through, I check it off, make sure that we've done it. And then the final part that I always do is final step 7. Honestly, any of these steps can be done in any order as long as you tick them off. Some are better before others, but as long as you're ticking off all the boxes, that kind of counted as a success, really. The last one is the last one, and that is the kickoff hook. I always end my session zeros with a teaser hook for session 1. Maybe it's the rumor that they all heard if they are part of an adventuring party. Maybe it's a shared dream that's brought them together. Maybe it's a festival where everything kicks off, like in Wrath of the Righteous. The point is to leave everyone excited and ready to sit down next time. Character sheets all prepared. Ideally, they send them to me ahead of time so I can go, it's a character sheet, it looks good. Do you have any questions? No, we're solid. Great. When we sit down for session 1, we're ready to dive into the story. We're not spending another hour going over things and figuring it out. Things already take long enough to get started, let's be honest. So that's my step-by-step session 0 process. And again, these don't have to be in particular order, but I like to hit the tone and genre, the campaign scope, lines and veils, or safety tools, character building together as a group, table logistics, house rules and style, and then the kickoff hook. This doesn't need to take all night. You can do this in a couple of hours, and it will save you weeks of headache down the line. If you have a long-standing group where everyone knows each other and you've played before, it can take an hour. My Friday group, I've been friends with for a long time. We've been playing for a couple of years now. And when we sit down to do a campaign, it's bang, 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 bang. This is what we're feeling like. Here's the character concepts that we're thinking of. Da da. Hour and a half. And that's when we're really drawing it out. Otherwise, we already know each other's boundaries in the game, what we don't want to see. So it's just what story are we telling? What kind of characters do we want to make? We already have our days figured out. So remember that session 0 isn't about restricting creativity. It's about aligning expectations so everyone at the table is telling the same story together. That's what makes RPG stories great is, for me, everyone working together to tell the same story instead of trying to force different stories into the same mold at the table. But thank you for hanging out with me today. If you found this useful, let me know in the comments how you run your session zeros. Or if you've never run one before, tell me what part of this process you'd actually like to try. You don't have to take all of it. You can take part of it. Whatever works for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the little bell, all the fun things that YouTube wants of us. If you want to hear more of my gaming takes or DM philosophy or monster breakdown, until next time, may your party stay united, your campaign stay strong, and your stories always begin on the right foot. So long, adventurers.